Hello and good evening. My name is Pathikrit Pine and welcome to another episode of SPMRF podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. His name is Mr. Abhishek Bhatt. He is an alumni of Indian Institute of Technology. He is a founder of a startup. He is an advisory. He works in a consulting advisory organization and he is extremely passionate about India's tech sovereignty and the whole essence of how India should secure its data because in this era data is your gold, or probably even more valuable than gold. So we'll discuss today that in the last 10 years, as Prime Minister Modi has given the slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat, in different realms, a lot of positive work has happened. What essentially should be done in terms of ensuring that in the next, say, one decade, India's dependence on foreign entities comes down, especially in the realm of digital and social media or operating systems or search engines, and how we can emulate some of the things that has been done by China or other countries, which have really given a very prominent competition to the West today. Welcome, Abhishek. It's a pleasure to have you on this show. Um, all yours.
Thank you, Pratik. Thank you, thanks. And yes, Government of India over last 10, 12 years has done tremendous job for the indigenization of data and all the data ecosystem wherein data center play the fulcrum role. And we also have to be cognizant of the fact that from 2012 to now, the speed of digitization has gone up exponentially. Many new technologies are coming, like cloud was non existent around a decade ago. Quantum is sitting around the corner. AI has just come out. We all know it. All of them are creating regulatory challenges, technological challenges, and the biggest among them all, it is the challenge with respect to sovereignty. So, as someone clearly told that today's risk is not about the borders, it is about the undefined borders. By undefined, we mean the virtual borders and the data that we are playing around.
Yeah, great. So let me start this way. Like when Prime Minister Modi took on the mantle in 2014, we were among the fragile five economies of the world. So from that time onwards, to become among the major five economies, we are on the cusp of becoming probably the fourth largest economy of the world. We have almost perhaps crossed the $4 trillion mark. A lot of things have been done in terms of production linked incentive being given to create or develop India as a manufacturing hub. A lot of effort is also being made in the realm of electric vehicles, creating an ecosystem for renewable energy components within the country. My question is this: while we have become probably the second largest manufacturer of mobile phones in the world, mobile handsets, even though predominantly it's assembly that's going on. So, what should be the next target? Where should we actually focus now? Should it be on AI, quantum computing, or should it also be, say, in the realm of ensuring that while we work on resilient supply chains, we have our own social media, digital media, or operating systems? Because in every aspect of these, there is an overwhelming dependence, or rather, complete monopoly that exists of the foreign entities. And where do you think that the focus should be probably in the next 5 years?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to we need to take into account that regulatory space and the policy space is always a slow moving beast. Like Uber and Ola came first, and the policy related to cab sharing came later. Similarly, e-com came first, and the policy of e-com came later. Similarly, DPDP bill is coming just right now, Miss, as we are discussing, and that is how things move. So that's a fact which we can't ignore it. Now, the most important aspect is how do we ensure in such fast moving world where everything is getting into a sublime state. So in quantum, we have neither zero nor one. It will be in a very sublime state. How do we have the right policies in place which safeguard our future? So even before we jump onto the gun that we have to do a 100% indigenization of certain component, we have to have an enabling policy which helps us realize that vision maybe 10 years downstream. I'll give a simple example. We all know that even incidentally, we are having this VC on a foreign VC software.
App.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe the network that we are using, there also might be foreign components like Cisco routers and so many, I don't know, many foreign components. But in the entire ecosystem, it is not just about the hardware, network, and the underlying system. The key thing is about the data which is flowing inside it. That is the goal. Let me use one analogy. Like I keep my wife's or household's precious stuff like gold, jewelry in say an X bank's locker. So in this case, this jewelry or this artifact, this becomes data. I have kept in some private bank's lockers. So this private bank is the banking behemoth. This analogy can be mapped to a technology behemoth. Now, the locker services is just one of the services of that big company. So, which is cloud in that scenario. We have got many lockers sets there in the bank. Now, this locker opens with two keys. All of us operate it. One key is with me, one key is with the banker. So, while my jewelry data privacy is assured because nobody can see it, data protection is also assured because nobody can take it. But data attainability is missing. So if this company, this entity, because you need two keys, they refuse to give their key, then your data is protected, your data is privacy controlled, but it is no longer attainable. So it is almost good for nothing. And all that we are, means all of us, we are at the end of the day generating data, which everyone is monetizing, be it social media companies, be it anyone, for forecasting, for everybody, every entity is behind this data. So we need to have enabling policies which not just talks about privacy and protection, but also about attainability. And in the entire value chain, like bank is a bit complex. So let me map again with data center. So data center would also be a physical building similar to bank, similar to locker, which is kept somewhere in the some cold storage or some hidden cell. That is one of the components of the services, and many of the components within that data center, like hardware, network, hundreds of software, security softwares. We need to identify in the entire value chain which all are the components which we can indigenize first. Unlike US, which is a capital rich country, they don't have dearth of capital because they can print dollars. And unlike China, which has been able to sneak its way through some means or other, creating replicas or duplicates, India is neither US nor China. Our primary forte lies in human capital. And for creating softwares, we don't need a lot of capital. So we need to identify those smaller software components. There are thousands of software in the entire ecosystem. Like even in this video conference that we are having, there must be multiple layers. There's operating system, then there's one more layer, which is that software which I indigenize, brings the strategic control and data attainability to me. So that is how I see the roadmap will be. And thanks to this government, they are also thinking in these lines because day one, we can't indigenize the entire ecosystem. It has to start from somewhere.
So if you look at this deep seek that has been brought out by a Chinese entity has revolutionized. It did not revolutionize. It has rattled the entire ecosystem. I think the U.S. stock market has lost around $1 trillion. So it also shows that it may not require huge amount of money if you actually want to innovate, because Sam
You are
Waltman
absolutely
was
right.
probably Sam Waltman was probably talking something else, that it's not easy. I mean, he was, when he was in India, I think some discussion on that line was going on, that it's not something which can be replicated. So in that respect, where probably, I don't know if I can use the word frugal engineering for it or not, something like that which we have always taken pride in. What should be the role of the IITs or other tech institutes in terms of pushing this, this innovation, which you talked about, that very key thing that we should focus on? Should it be a, a collaboration between the government and the tech institutes in terms of creating a policy framework like this. This is the key, the most critical aspect that we should focus on, or should it be left to the industry to decide what they should do?
I have worked in government for more than a decade, both 2014 and both the eras. I have seen that, and I can definitely tell you the mechanism of collaboration between IITs, government, and industry is lot better now. Like when we were graduating, we didn't know what government is, what industry is. Everything used to be in silos. That is not the case anymore. So that problem has largely been solved because they are part of the ecosystem. The second ecosystem part is there is absolutely no doubt that engineers, at least the top rank engineers in IITs, they are the brightest. They just need to be told the problem statement on which they need to work instead of only the academic pursuit, other than the courses and that are told. And one of the areas which industry needs to come up, suppose if I were industry, I were building a cloud services or data center services, I cannot build everything on my own. Maybe building will be built by some civil contractor, electrical wiring would be done by some electrical engineer, there will be racks, there will be servers. As an industry, in the entire value chain of the data center, where my gold is stored, as I told you, and it is non-attainable as of now, I need to reach out to the policymakers that this is one small component which frugal engineering, with through frugal engineering and by leveraging our brightest resources, we can develop that. And through policy mechanisms, government can ensure that those frugal engineering tools become one of the important ingredient of our data ecosystem.
So, the thing that I shared with you probably a week or 2 weeks back, sorry, about the Chinese the CCP program called the PLA 863 in the 1980s. In terms of they made it a mission that they will one day have, they will be among the top players in switching, networking, workstations, handsets, and surveillance. Uh, so, do you think somewhere, when you rightly mentioned about the problem statement, do you think somewhere it has the time has come for the industry and the academia to come up and decide that? Because why I'm saying this, like while we have celebrated and while we should be celebrating the fact that India's IT industry is almost a $200 billion plus industry, but somewhere maybe we missed a bus while we were making a lot of money as an industry while maintaining softwares. Somewhere we could not create a chat GPT. Somewhere we could not create a deep sea. Somewhere we missed the vision of creating products and not just focus on maintenance of others' products. What do you think about it?
So well, let's simply use a use case. So I did job, I do entrepreneurship, and anybody. So India was so when we were passing out, I think we were all we are peers. At that time, both as a nation, as a society, and as a family also, our vision was only till bread and butter. That's all. Not even butter, only bread. So no, so our ability to think about innovation was somewhere in the dustbin. So if I knew that I by doing this I will get my bread, we did that. So similarly, when an entrepreneur starts his journey, he never thinks of creating Chat GPT on day one. A very middle class entrepreneur, they first start from the trading mindset. Let me get this product, sell it. When they make some money, they get financial security, then they think of innovating it. Why I'm selling someone else's? Why can't I create my own? And that is the evolutionary cycle as both society and as a nation we take. I will still say we have not missed the bus. We have not. And thankfully, government, academia, industry, and when I say industry, I will very focused and sharp on that. I mean the Indian industry in this context. They are collaborating, they are brainstorming, they are discussing which all components can be indigenized. And I am pretty sure that as a society and as a country, as we evolved, because uh, 25 years ago, all of us were, or maybe 30 years ago, we were struggling for bread. Now our country is no longer struggling for bread. We don't need white revolution and green revolution. We are going for a data revolution. And as we go through this journey, we will definitely have much bigger role to play, and we will be playing it. And I'll give one more example. Like if you go to Europe, you will still find those dead landlines, and very few miss. Even in Europe, mobile is very expensive data. Our generation missed landline, and we directly jumped to the mobile era. So from mobile perspective, we are ahead of them. Similarly, in fintech, we missed Mastercard, Visa card. We didn't have Indian payment ecosystem, but we jumped two generations and we landed up in UPI. So this UPI moment, the mobile moment, they will also happen in the data ecosystem. But when it will happen, I don't know. The ball has started rolling. Industry stake consultations are happening. And as I'm speaking, I'm already interacting with at least half a dozen startups who are dedicatedly working in creating those niche softwares, which does not require capital. They only require, as you rightly said, the jugaad engineering with some brightest minds.
Wonderful. So, I mean, I'm not trying to, give any sermon. This is probably a layman's question to you. Like, do you think, because you have a background in the tech industry, do you think the time has come for some of the biggest IT companies of India to focus a little more, or probably because today they have crossed that threshold which you mentioned, that the first priority is to actually trade. That threshold has been crossed because they are huge companies today. Do you think it's time at least some of them um, focus a little more on development of key products? And why I'm asking this is because there has been recently this whole controversy about the number of hours an employee must work, and so I don't think people will mind working if it is apart from the the salary part. If it is about you, the problem statement is that look, you need to develop this rather than just about targets. I mean, this is a layman's question to you. What do
Yeah.
you think? Should
No,
they
no,
be
no,
focusing?
no, you are absolutely right. At least my personal feel, because I've worked in really multi-billion dollar companies, I've worked in government, and I am to startups also. I think the real innovation is going to come out from very handful of guys, those who might be sitting in some corner of the backbench, either in IITs or in some of the companies. That is where, because innovation and process don't go hand in hand. The moment we big, like government or even big companies, they are more process centric and not customer centric. But when we are small, we are more customer centric. So we can change processes for customer centricity. So customer centricity is the top. And now that awareness around these things are happening regarding data sovereignty, I'm pretty sure, means even as we are having VC, there must be hundreds of people who must be ideating and working on creating these niche softwares which can achieve the vision of data sovereignty. Because right now, we are not data sovereign. Unlike China, Russia, who are truly data sovereign, just their things won't collapse even if all the tech companies run away from there. Whereas that is not the case for us. But we will go beyond them maybe very soon.
That's very interesting. And so what are your expectations from the data protection and data security law? I think it's going to come up in the recent
Yeah.
future, in the near future. What do you think should be included? Probably, if it is not yet part of it. I mean, whatever you can discuss and share. I will not ask you to share things which are probably
No,
in
no,
the
definitely
realm of
not. These are all
confidentiality.
public information. I was part of the consultation workshop also of DPDP. So these are all public information. I had this two, three very interesting use cases. I'll go by use case because many people will not understand the scientific and legal terms. As an end user, suppose one day I want to shut down my Gmail and say move it to some Indian mail like Rediff mail. Will the law enable to migrate the entire data from Gmail to Rediff mail? The law doesn't enable right now. You got my context? We have mobile
Right.
portability, but the data portability has somewhere got missed out. Suppose if I want to migrate, say, from Instagram to some other social media, will Instagram delete all the data from their server, give it to me, and I ask them to give it to this service provider? Will they do it? The current legislative and regulative mechanisms have not addressed this part, which is very critical because this is my data. I can decide where my emails should be. So this is not there. The second component also, which should be there, in my opinion, it talks, as I in the starting lines, it talks about privacy and protection. I know it is private. I know it is protected. But what about data attainability? Can I attain my data? So that attainability component has got missed out. And the third, I think any data which gets processed outside India, Indian law won't be applicable. You must have seen the High Court judgment and the Open API case that is happening. Open API submitted this, that data has got processed outside India. Hence, your laws will not be applicable. So there has to be a regulatory mechanism on how the data processing takes place outside India if any data is being taken outside. All our data goes out for processing. We all know it. So these are the three pillars which should be there either in the DPDP bill, or maybe there can be a separate regulation altogether, because attainability and sovereignty are a different ballgame altogether.
No, you are indeed very right, because while we have very strong strategic partnership with some of the Western, major developed countries, but in today's era, everything is so relative. You don't never know how things can turn up, and one shudders to even think what happens if there is a complete data blackout. But that proposition, however scary it might be, cannot be entirely ruled out. Probably, a decade later, given the way geopolitically things are turning up.
Yeah.
So, my next question would be this: do you think that we have these world-class IITs, other IIMs, even the NITs? Do you think the government should start or give a mandate that every one of these top institutes of India should have should develop a special purpose vehicle as an advisory organization as well? Because we find, just as we have a dependence on foreign IT or companies, foreign tech giants, there's a dependence on foreign consulting companies as well. And sometimes there is this ecosystem which works in a way that our dependence remains on the foreign tech companies instead of innovating. I mean, without taking names, do you think it is important, it is time that the government starts its own tech advisory companies as an ecosystem for startups? Like, let each of these organizations start their own advisory division.
No, this is the need of the hour, and you have this is the fulcrum point. Let's all be very honest. The white papers, the DPRs, the RFPs, ultimately they are created by consulting bodies. They're not created by OEMs. And we need to have a complete delinkage of OEM fraternity who are from foreign origin and the consulting bodies, those who write DPRs, RFPs, because there is a possibility of cloud getting developed. And as far as I know, government has started the work in this direction. So they are already in the process. They have created some SPVs. They have created some bodies. And but the challenge which they face, because I closely interact with them also, is the our some of the rules, GFR rules. They don't give that kind of due importance to these SPVs. I'll give one classic example that most of these SPVs that have been created, they generally work on nomination. Now, nomination has both sides of the word. It has got the good side and also the bad side. The bad side is you don't get price discovery, which is absolutely right. The good side is if I get a work on nomination, then my focus is no longer on PNL. My focus is in meeting the need of the client. So government has done something, but it needs to be done. They need to do a lot more. They need to do a lot more.
So I mean, I believe that let the IITs, be creating their own consult, because eventually, if you see, when most of these foreign consulting companies, it is the guys from IITs and the IIMs are working there. Ultimately, most of them. So I mean, I think that let these IITs and IIMs compete with each other for each of the tenders, but each
Yeah.
of them, I believe, should start. So you talked about a very interesting concept, that whether the portability can happen from, say, Instagram to Facebook. You're essentially talking about something which is also being discussed in the power sector in terms of the concept of content and carriage, which
Yeah.
means the transmission grid, or the transmission line should be one, and I can decide which power utility company should provide me the electricity. So there's a distinction between content and courage, which is a very noble idea you have given. Uh, I think somewhere is it possible? My last question to you would be this: will it be possible? Would it be feasible? If you see what Trump is doing right now in terms of imposing tariffs and all of that, in terms of what happens even in Middle Eastern countries, if you set up a company there, you have to dilute a certain amount of stake for a local, say 51%, you hold 49%. Can somehow an ecosystem or a policy framework be created wherein we ask these tech, like, see, it is a reality that we need the tech companies, but it's also a reality that they do need us, given the kind of revenue we generate from India. Can we ask, or can we have formulate a policy wherein we say that a certain amount of stake you have to dilute from your subsidiary in India and
On
have somebody from the government or somewhere be in the board? Because somewhere the way things are moving in terms of AI and algorithms and the way things have happened in this election 2024 Lok Sabha election, the kind of
yeah,
allegations that are there, of what has
yeah.
happened in terms of containing traffic, do you think it is something which can be done, a subsidiary policy?
This must be done. So for anything, there are multiple levers. One is the legislative lever. Third is the policy and regulatory lever. The fourth is the technology stack itself. Fifth is the corporate affairs legal. When we talk about the restructuring of these are all levers through which our entire objective is about strategic control. So
Right.
and sovereign control. So if you somewhere somebody shared me in Siri, somebody asked where is Arunachal Pradesh? The Siri responded, I don't know whether it is in India or somewhere else. It's a fact. You can just do it right now. Huh? So point is now the big techs also control our narratives, what we think, what our kids will think, and that is a kind of power they wield. So government has to devise these kind of mechanisms to have strategic control. That's part A. Part B, from where I see India with 140 plus crore population and the biggest data generator of the world, one of the biggest data generator of the world, every company in the world has to fall in line. This is where the data business is. So whatever policies to say that no, they might not fall in line or they might not be amenable to our policies, I think that is just fear mongering. So we must be having the regulatory in terms of shareholding pattern. We must have certain mandated indigenization component, and we must be having policies around the consulting ecosystem also, so that these CSVs and these IITs can also chip in.
Wonderful. And, if we have to be genuinely Atmanirbhar in every aspect in the long run, in spite of a lot of pressure that the government will definitely face from lobbies abroad, I think these are the things that you mentioned. It's time that, we start working on it, because the government is already working on many areas. But, people like you who are very passionate, who are not thinking only about earning money, but who actually want India to be genuinely sovereign in terms of technology and the way you have been working on it. We wish you all the best, and we request you to continue your work in terms of, sharing your views with the government, because while it is important that we should have these tech companies and we should have this strategic partnership with major foreign Western countries, but at somewhere, the entire disruption during COVID showed how important it is to be sovereign in every way. So on that note, while we do admit the government has been doing a lot of good work in semiconductor development or lithium, a lot of things, because there are multiple layer of challenges in various aspects. This is one area where I think that a lot of work has to be done. And we wish you all the best for all the effort that you're putting in to help India attain that. Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, Pathik. And all this has been possible only in this era. Let me be very honest on that also.
Absolutely.
Such private entrepreneurs, such private consulting firms, they are coming up and thinking out of the box. This has been possible only because of the Atmanirbhar initiative. If it were not there, even I would have not got this idea that these are important aspects.
So
So,
invariably, if you look at in the last 10 years, the fact that we can sit and talk on these things is because the government is willing to listen. Before
yes,
2014, you would have been shut out.
Yes, yes. We were not aware of it. We were never told that you also need to be Atmanirbhar. We were only told to work on our bread, nothing
Yes,
beyond that.
absolutely. And in the last, say, first 5 years of the last 10 years, the government put in a lot of effort to take care of the basics, whether it is sanitation, whether it is basic food security, whether it is about ensuring everyone has a bank account, and then whether everyone has access to the digital world. So once that aspect has been taken care of, then a lot of other work is being done in terms of developing India as a major hub for manufacturing. It will yield results, but it will
Yeah,
take time. But the work is started. Structural reforms have happened in terms of GST and Insolvency Bankruptcy Code Act. Now, in terms of technology, while the government is doing a lot of good work, I think it's very important, and I must appreciate people like you are coming forward and telling the government or the advisory that you're giving that what all finer things that can be done, because eventually it's a collaborative thing.
yeah.
The government would have its own idea and wisdom, but the individuals, the countrymen will have to also come together and advise and tell the government. And I think the government has been very positive and appreciative in terms of these ideas over the last 10 years. On that note, we conclude this session, but we hope to have more such sessions with you in the future. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Pratik, and
Namaste.
namaste to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.